welcome to a conversation with this month's Amber Grant winner for October 2023. And today we have the pleasure of chatting with Linda Diak of Linda Diak Quilts. I'm Marsha Layton Turner. I'm one of several Women's Net Advisory Board members. So Linda, thank you so much for your time to chat with us about your quilts. I'm super excited to hear all about them.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So let's start kind of at the beginning. Tell everybody who's watching a little bit about your business and how you got started in quilt making.
I am predominantly an art quilter. I create art quilts that are images from my imagination, my inspiration, but I also do commission work for others, their homes, their pets, their loved ones, etc. Businesses. I've done their logos. And then this past year, I've added long arming for a quilt for others, whether it's their bed quilts or their art quilts. And I started this, it started the art quilting just a few years ago. I have been a textile artist all my life. I was a weaver for the first half of my life. And then I started around 24 years ago, Grafton Fibers, which became Diacraft. And I was originally selling spinning fibers and hand spindles made by other folks. And I wanted a specific spindle, and no one would make it for me. So my husband began his wood turning career, creating that spindle, and that morphed into knitting needles and crochet hooks, which kind of took over. So for the last decade or so, I have had to channel my creativity into website development and emails and photographs and advertising. And I hit a point where I really needed to be making again. I needed to do my work again. So I was in a fabric store. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I was in a fabric store, and they had gotten in a sit-down a long arm machine that's placed in a table.
And so a long arm is a quilting tool?
Quilting machine, yes. It's on a big frame.
Okay.
And so they had gotten a sit down. And so I sat down at this thing, and within 30 seconds, I turned to my husband and to the shop owner and said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be really good at it. I just knew. So that's how it got started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now that you've won the $10,000 Amber Grant, what are some investments that you're going to make in your business? Because I know you really have demand for your quilts. So what are you going to do with that money?
Well, I am married to a former exhibitions designer. Worked for museums and collectors. And every time I've made a piece, I'd say, Tom, what do you think of it? And he'd say, that's nice, honey, but it should be bigger. And when we recently hung all my work up at Dartmouth Hitchcock Lebanon Medical Center in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and it looks great, but there's a lot of empty wall. And I have two pieces that I have designed that I have been trying to get built. And the first one is of Billings Farm Museum in Woodstock. It's a beautiful facility as part of the Rockefeller Foundation, I believe. And they have a visitor center that they want this particular quilt. It's of their cows with the museum stitched into the background for their entry. And if I can complete this piece, it will be seen by tens of thousands of visitors every year from all over the world.
Wow.
So I'm trying to get it made. The exhibitions person at Billings is trying to find funding to purchase it, etc. And now I finally have the equipment, which I just got this past year, a machine on a frame. But I've needed the time and the funds to shut everything down to work on that large of a piece. And then the second piece I want to create, I designed this year, that in July, the Vermont was devastated by flooding, especially in our area. And a number of animals were impacted, and 4 of them caught my attention. A pig that took off down the highway, a bull that was running through neighbors' yards, an emu that took off and went on a month-long trek, 30
Wow.
miles, loop around the area, and a peacock named Kevin, who sadly no one's ever seen Kevin since.
Ah,
So at least I haven't heard any updates on
right.
Kevin, let's put it that way. So anyway, I've designed a quilt with the 4 of these creatures in an old Buick, and taking a road trip together, and I'm hoping I can produce it and tour it around the state and the region, and possibly raise money from the image for some groups, animal groups,
Oh,
because nothing has really been done for the animals that were impacted. But there's still much that the people need, and it's understandable. But and it also gives a bit of humor and something to smile about from the flooding, which otherwise there's just not a lot to smile about. So I want to get those 2 pieces produced. I want to get them photographed professionally and appraised. And
excellent. And so when you're talking about a large quilt, what are some dimensions?
About 8 feet by 10 feet.
Okay, yeah, that is.
I think Billings is going to be 7 feet by 9 feet.
Okay.
They're working out the dimensions where they want to hang it.
Wow.
But they're large scale. They'll take a lot of time. And I won't be able to be working on other folks' work while I'm doing that. So
sure.
Yeah.
So what do you think has been the secret to your success thus far?
I have a few advantages in that I have a long history in the fiber arts, as well as a variety of businesses to date. Retail, mail order, online sales. I've been involved in 2 large nonprofits. So, and you collect this throughout your life, and at some point it all kind of just flows together, and that kind of did for me here in this. And I have my husband, that I can call on, who has a very keen and developed eye, and I can say, I'm stuck, and what do you think of this? And so having that is huge, and a support community. And I have a very strong one, and it's my customers, it's my peers, colleagues, friends. And because I've been at home and self-employed in a rural area most of my adult life. So but I've also been online because of my business.
Yeah, so it sounds like a strong network just built up over time has really been a key advantage, especially as an artist, really getting the word out. I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. So looking ahead to the future, 3 to 5 years hence, what do you think your business will look like?
Well, what I'm hoping it'll look like is that I will be doing more and more of my work, but at the same time, I want to produce classes, online classes.
Great.
Over a decade ago, I told my husband we have to look forward to the future here, and consider that we're going to have to get to a point where we're selling information and not stuff that came out of our hands, because you can only count on that for so long. But so I do want to put together a series of classes that will change and grow. I want to build out. Our house is an old colonial in a very quintessential Vermont village. And we're right in the center. And it has been a business for much of the last 40 plus years. So there's no kitchen downstairs anymore or anything. And we would like to take that space, which is currently shipping and office, and turn it into a retail space and gallery for my work, other people's work as well.
Yeah.
We had a gallery when we first moved to Vermont 30 plus years ago, and we've always kind of wanted to revisit that. And then I've been in talks with a number of the inns here in town to bring in students for week-long retreats. I have a friend in Australia and one in Spain, both world-renowned quilters, that they want to hang out in Vermont.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we could start having some really nice retreats to bring folks in so that they're in our restaurants, they're in our shops. And
Yeah.
so multifaceted.
That sounds great.
When we first moved up here from Florida, we were in a restaurant in northern New Hampshire, and I was sitting at the bar, and there was a woman sitting there, and she said, if you want to live here, you have to do 3 things. And I said, what's that? And she said, it doesn't matter. You just have to be able to do 3 things. And that's what business is too. You have to be able to do 3 things.
So what's one piece of advice that you might give an aspiring female entrepreneur, somebody who's just getting started?
I think the most important thing is to listen to your gut, because the people in your life are going to be overly concerned about you. People perceive the risk that's involved with self-employment as being extraordinary, when they're all at risk too. Everyone has risk. It's just that it's more visible when you are self-employed. It's no different. And so you do have to become risk averse and not pay too much attention to that. Safety nets. You do lose safety nets when you're self-employed, and your safety net is going to come in the form of your community. And you really need to cultivate that. And I think the last thing is, especially if you're an artist, you need to join groups that are related to what you do, but you can't get too wrapped up in them early on, because you're going to have a lot of self-doubt. We all do, question yourself. And if you're surrounded by too many people whose work you admire, then you're going to start questioning your own. And you need to just listen to yourself.
Excellent
advice.
But
and before I go, I have to say this. I said it to you earlier before we started. I cannot thank Women's Net and Amber Grant enough for this award. Not only the financial support, and I appreciate that, but just the recognition that a quilter, an artist and a quilter of all things, is worthy of a business award. It is not easy out there for artists. It is not easy for women, and women artists, particularly those of us who are working in areas or mediums that are considered more domestic. It is almost impossible. Every single quarter, the New York Times runs a column on an innovative quilter or knitter or crocheter, and every single headline is, not your grandmother's knitter, not your grandmother's crochet, not your grandmother's quilts. And since most people only read the headlines, those articles only reinforce the stereotype. Right. So it's huge. It's huge for me, but I cannot thank you. You're providing validation to all of us, and I cannot thank you enough.
Awesome. So glad to hear it. Congratulations again for being our October Amber Grant.
Thank you so much.